Welcome, everybody. My name's Keith. I'm with 2A Cops, Cops Supporting Gun Rights. In this episode, we are going to talk about Biden's executive order and what cops think about that executive order. Now, before we continue and you hear about what cops are saying about this executive order, I want you to hit the like button, the notification bell, and hit the subscribe button. Leave a comment. Let the algorithm know that more people should know about it. So we've had exponential growth over the last month, and it's because of people like you. More people need to hear what the police are thinking about all this stuff. There's a bunch of misinformation going out. We exist to let you know the truth. We call out bad stuff when we see it. We call out good stuff all the time. Hit that subscribe button. All right, let's get into it. So let's start off. I'm going to go through Biden's executive order. We're going to talk about some of the stuff because there's some stuff that people aren't talking about in that executive order that should scare the shit out of you. Okay. Now, first off, he wants to increase the number of background checks that are being done and wants to bring us as close to universal background checks as possible. Okay, never mind that there's really not much in there as far as background checks that he can do. But let's just talk about background checks and criminality. I was a narcotics detective for a long time, and those are the people that mostly are armed when we talk about the criminal element being armed, and they always say it helps the cops, right? If we do this gun control measure. Okay, look, man, I'm the one that was most impacted by that. I'm here to tell you that all those guys that have those guns, they didn't buy them lawfully. You want to know how they got it? It's because people didn't store their guns properly. They left them loose in their car, not to victimize the victims, right? I'm not poking or pointing fingers at people who were victims of burglary, okay? But they went into houses that didn't have gun safes, that didn't store their weapons in a safe manner. They were just laying around, and they went in and stole those guns. And then they went out on the street and then they sold it to other criminals, or they used it themselves. That's how it happens. Okay. They don't go into a gun store and go, you know what? I want that Scar 17. I think that would look really good for my next robbery. I think it would be very well, very nice. Have some good firepower. They don't do that, man. They're using high points. It's not like, you're a skilled tactician and go, yeah, that high point is going to work really well for me. Okay. So these guys don't do background checks. It's me and you that get the background check, and it's me and you that are punished for having to go through a background check to exercise a freedom. No cops like this. We think it's stupid because we get hung up on background checks just like you. I got a friend that has to go the full Brady period every time because somebody out there has a warrant for and a name similar to his, and he gets hung up the entire time, and he knows that. Why is he getting hung up? He's already got guns. Why would you wait? Anyways, if he wanted to do something, he's got guns to do it already. All right, enough of that. We're going to move on. Enough venting. Just know the cops think it's bull, and they get hung up with this too. And we all know criminals don't go through background checks. They're going to buy it on the street, on a street corner from a criminal that stole it from somebody else. Okay. Next up, he wants to improve public awareness and increase appropriate use of extreme risk protection orders and safe storage of firearms. Red flag laws. Okay. Me and Matt, the co-creator at 2A Cops, we have all said the same thing, that cops don't like these red flag laws. It puts us in danger. We don't like it. Number one, there's no judicial review, and cops swore an oath, and they don't like that there's no judicial review. In fact, cops have become victims of the red flag laws themselves. There's an incident that we're tracking where a cop had a brush in with his police department, and the police department pushed back, and a lieutenant from that agency wrote a red flag order, right? Basically, the court order that says we have to take his weapons because he's out of control. Look how he was talking to me in the office. And somebody signed it. Some judge signed it, and they went off and they took his guns, and he fought it in court. And the judge ordered them to give back his guns, said it was the most egregious error he's ever seen, the biggest overreach he had ever seen, and the department is still refusing to give back his guns. Okay, so it leaves it open for abuse by people that are badge heavy or have issues. The cops on the street don't like it. We don't like it because, well, it's just unjust, right? He also put in here, it's kind of funny. He puts in here, address the loss or theft of firearms during shipping. We already do that. When a gun shop gets their guns stolen, oh my God, there's alerts that go out everywhere. We used to get them all the time in briefing. You know what briefing is? It's the beginning of a cop shift. You sit down, and for, I don't know, however long it takes, they're going to go over who's wanted, crime trends, stuff like that. Every once in a while, you do some good training if you have some time. But I remember all the time, like we would get notified, like we're in the San Francisco Bay Area and we're getting notified of some Ohio gun dealer that was hit. And we're like, it's Ohio. Like, we're not going to see that stuff. Why are we getting this? Right. But we get that info anyways. What else is there to do? All it is, he's appeasing people. It's stupid. Like cops look at that and go, this is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. Of course you're going to address it. We already do. Anyways, that's enough of that. Holding the gun industry accountable. The best comment I got was from a cop in the San Francisco Bay Area. He straight up works in the most communist community in America. I went over this on a break and I'm like, check this out, read this. And I'm reading it out loud. And the cop just blurts out an expletive and says, hold up. At what point are we going to hold the criminals accountable? And I'm like, yes, right? We're going to hold the gun industry accountable. They're selling a product that's a God-given right. Well, not God-given right, but it's a right granted under the Constitution, right? And and we're going to hold them accountable. We're not going to hold the guy that's doing these shootings and like these gang shootings and everything. We're not going to hold them accountable. No, we're going to hold the gun industry accountable. Again, we laugh because we think it's silly. It's the dumbest stuff ever. Provide the public and policymakers with more information regarding federally licensed firearm dealers who are violating the law. They already do that. It's all publicly available. You can go online to ATF's website and look at FFLs that are getting their licenses suspended. It's all public record. What else are you going to do? Like, we already know. Are you going to waste more government money on a commercial? You know what you can do instead of wasting government money on a commercial? You can toss down some money to us and give us a freaking pay raise. Or you can hire more cops, or you can put money back into the community and make a nice park, or you can do something else, right? Do something else besides waste money to make everybody feel good. Use the Department of Defense's acquisition of firearms to further firearm and public safety practices. That is the biggest bunch of mumbo jumbo I've ever seen. And why are we involving the Department of Defense in this? Like, is nobody worried about that? I am. Okay, we're going to move on because that's just the dumbest ever. Help cap shooters by accelerating federal law enforcement's reporting of ballistics data. Well, how about this? I already get the information quickly and everybody's in jail already by the time like all that stuff comes around. How about instead of accelerating ballistics data, you accelerate my Form 4 or my Form 1? How about that? How about instead of 8 people approving these forms, you go out and hire a bunch of people to start clearing the backlog? I just got a silencer today that took me 8 months. You told me it was going to be 90 days. How about you accelerate that? Sorry, not to sidetrack. Accelerate and intensify implementation of bipartisan Safer Communities Act. That was the biggest bunch of bull ever passed. Anyways, I digress. Improve federal support of gun violence survivors, victims, and survivors' families, first responders to gun violence, and communities affected by gun violence. Okay, I'm just going to break it down on the first responder part. They want to help us, the first responders that are victims of gun violence, which we are. Our cops get shot. It happens, but we're already supported. There's already things in place. We have workers' comp. We have funds for injured officers. I mean, like my community, when a cop gets shot, like everybody comes out of the woodwork to help them. I brought this up to cops, and it was funny. I had a cop from the Midwest when I brought this up. I just did the same thing I'm doing to you. I just threw it out there. And this cop from the Midwest, he laughs and he's like, hold on, man. Don't we already people may not know this, but there's a national fund that if a cop gets shot and is critically injured, like paralyzed, missing limbs, something like that, you get $250,000 from the federal government, not including your workers' comp and everything else. Now that money gets used up in fixing up your house because you now need wheelchairs and stuff like that. But there's something in there already, right? And then we already have victim assistance funds, and states have victim assistance funds. Like, why are we throwing more money at this? Instead of throwing more money at that, how about we get to homeless vets? That'd be a good idea, wouldn't it? Give that money to homeless vets instead. I work with veterans in the area around where I live, and they could use some help. Here we go. Last one. You ready? And I'm done with my rant. Okay. Advance congressional efforts to prevent proliferation of firearms undetectable metal detectors. I don't think there are many firearms that are undetectable. But I think people have tried. In fact, I've watched people like make them and try to make them undetectable by a metal detector. The bullets are going to set it off every time. So until you make a plastic bullet with a plastic primer, which I think people have been able to do it, but like it's not something that is going to be hardy enough. I mean, that's just stupid. I took this letter the day it came out and I went up in a break and I'm like, yeah, I see this. And everybody's like, yeah, it's so stupid. I'm like, hey, right on. Let's talk about it. We're at a break. We're on our own time. And we start going one by one. They are fuming. Why are they fuming? Because they're victims of this executive order, just like you are. They're held up in background checks, just like you are. I think the only time that you can get around a background, I've never gotten around a background check myself. The only time they can get around a background check is if you're buying a weapon for duty, and you got to get a letter from your chief, who writes a letter that says he's going to use this on duty, and then you go in and you give it to them, and then they read it, and then they sell you the gun, and they give it to you, and it skips a background check. Even though we can't, like, if we failed a background check for an FFL, like a NICS check, we can't have a job. So obviously we would pass, but we still have to go through it as well, which we should anyway. So we should be just like everybody else in America, and we are. But there's a fallacy to think that cops can just get around it. It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, it's not like I can go and show my police ID and say, skip my background check. It doesn't work like that. You got to get a letter because the FFL has to have a letter on file to show why he skipped a background check. And so people like me look at it like, well, I don't want to go talk to the chief. He's an idiot. Go look at my prior video about chiefs of police, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And so I don't want to talk to the chief. I just want to get my gun. And it's harder for me to go get the letter from the chief. The chief just like, why do you need it? Are you sure you're going to use it on duty? And then I got to qualify with it. And it's a big pain. Literally, it's easy for me to go down to the gun shop, go get the gun, and walk home. We all think it's a joke. We all know criminals don't do background checks. We're as mad as we are. I hope that this clears things up for you. I hope it makes it clear to you about where cops are coming from. I certainly don't speak for every cop in America, but I talk to enough of them that I've seen some commonalities in what they're saying. And that's pretty accurate as to what they're thinking. So go ahead, hit subscribe, follow us, hit the notification bell. You got to make a comment and you got to share. It lets everybody know we're important and that people want to see our material. So thank you. I appreciate it. You guys take care, stay safe, and remember your ABCs. Always be caring.